the Scottish Labour leader. Kezia Dugdale is campaigning in East Lothian today, a seat currently held by the SNP. One of the big issues at the moment is the Tory plan to scrap people's winter fuel allowances, or not, as will be the case in Scotland. And Kezia Dugdale joins us live. Ms Dugdale, thank you very much for being with us. I wonder if you might just address a couple of points for us at the moment. Commentators appear to be suggesting that there might be a shift in momentum in this campaign towards the Labour Party, given the Conservatives' proposals, controversial proposals on the funding of social care, and of course also on that winter fuel allowance, which we're told, though, won't be applying north of the border, according to the Scottish Secretary, because it's too cold.
Well, what we saw from the Tories yesterday was a slash and burn manifesto, a plan to rip up many of the benefits of the United Kingdom, many of the things that we all collectively invest in together to get back out of the system, not least the winter fuel allowance. I thought it was very interesting that Ruth Davidson said this policy wouldn't apply in Scotland because she knows how deeply unpopular it would be for the Conservative government to take away a benefit introduced by Labour to help and support elderly people live in their own homes warmly and well for as long as possible. So Ruth Davidson's problem is she's spending so much time in this campaign talking about independence that she's not actually being exposed for the damage that her party are doing in government. Taking away the winter fuel allowance is just one aspect of that, but they are stripping away benefits, tax credits, left, right and centre. So I say to people across Scotland, you can vote Labour to oppose a second independence referendum, but you can also protect those valuable benefits that elderly people get, like the winter fuel allowance. That's a really key point in this campaign.
And yet, given all of that, given all of the many avenues attacked that the Labour Party has north of the border, the fact remains that if one of our viewers heads to the bookies this afternoon, they will not get great odds on the Labour Party not getting any seats in Scotland.
Well, I would suggest a few people might want to make their way to the bookies because I'm very confident of having a good result here in East Lothian. That's a seat that the SNP currently hold. It's a seat where independence is hugely unpopular, just as it is right across the whole of the country. You see a fall in support for the SNP after the local government elections, just 1 in 3 people at those elections backing the SNP. That's because people are sick and tired of Nicola Sturgeon's obsession with a second independence referendum. You can oppose that second independence referendum, but also vote for a plan which is about investing in public services by voting for Labour on the 8th of June. And the truth, the reality is that in the vast majority of seats across Scotland, it's only the Labour Party that can beat the SNP. There are a few differences in the borders and the Highlands where the Tories might be better placed, but right across Scotland's central belt, where the vast majority of Scotland's population lives, the only party that can beat the SNP is the Labour Party, and that includes here in East Lothian. At
the same time, Kezia Dugdale, was there any point in your life, and I'm not talking about your political life here, but your life, that you thought that the Labour Party would be in third place in Scotland behind both the Conservatives and the SNP?
I've never shied away from the reality that this is a difficult and challenging time for the Labour Party in Scotland. It's been this way since the referendum. It will be this way for as long as constitutional politics dominates the Scottish debate. And I think that's a great shame, because what we have is a general election campaign that's about the Constitution, rather than what I think the vast majority of Scots want it to be about: jobs, the economy, living standards. I'm visiting a fantastic local employer here in East Lothian supporting 70 rural jobs. There's a tremendous amount that the government of the day can do to support this company, to help it grow, to help it continue to pay back into the community that it's rooted in. That's an exciting thing that I want to highlight and demonstrate that we can do in the future if we get away from this constitutional wrangle. And I think the vast majority of people in Scotland want to leave those constitutional debates behind us, want the idea of a second independence referendum to be ruled out for good, and to get on with the business of creating jobs and opportunities, tackling poverty and making sure everyone in Scotland can fulfil their potential. That's what the Labour Party is about, and that's what you can vote for on the 8th of June.
Yeah, but the problem, Kezia Dugdale, is this, that those people in Scotland who do not wish to see a second independence referendum are going in one direction only. They're heading towards the Conservatives. I mean, isn't it the case that the criticisms that have been made of Jeremy Corbyn are now starting to arrive on your doorstep, that you're not effectively leading Scottish Labour? Take the situation with Aberdeen Council. You've had to suspend all of the Labour representatives on the council because they wanted to get into bed with the Conservatives. How is that leadership?
I think it is leadership to stand up for your values and your principles. What we've done across Scotland is to say that we won't share power with anybody that wants to pass on either the Tories' austerity or the SNP's austerity onto the poorest people across the country. That's the nature upon which that deal was ruled out. But the reality is, across Scotland, the only party that both opposes the second independence referendum and is prepared to stand up against austerity, to talk about investing in public services, is the Labour Party. And I'm immensely proud of that fact. And that's what I'm going to continue to campaign on over the next 3 weeks. I think that's what the vast majority of Scots want.
But why hasn't the message bedded in? I mean, you've been talking for quite some time about a new federal settlement for Scotland. Why hasn't that idea got more traction with the Scottish electorate?
I think there's lots of people in Scotland that are living in fear right now of a second independence referendum. What they want is that question answered, and then we can talk about further powers to the Scottish Parliament. Now, what I would say to you, Neil, is if you take the Conservatives' manifesto and line it up next to the Labour Party's manifesto, there's much clearer opposition to a second independence referendum in Jeremy Corbyn's manifesto, just as there will be in the manifesto that I will launch on Monday. What we are saying, Scots do not want or need a second independence referendum, and that is clear as day. Compare that to the Tories' manifesto, where the Prime Minister yesterday couldn't define what she meant by public consent. She's quite happy to have a second independence referendum, but won't tell us when or in what circumstances. The Labour Party understands people in Scotland are sick and tired of that debate. They want to leave it behind us, but they also want to vote for something more than that. So you can vote against independence, but for investment in public services by voting Labour on the 8th of June.
Kezia Dugdale, many thanks for joining us.
Thank you.